Mother-in-law threatened to cut us out for not having kids, then lost it when we moved away. I am a 31-year-old woman and I have been married to my husband, who is 33, for 5 years now, after dating for 3 years before that, and while my parents have always been pretty easygoing and never pressured me into anything I did not want, my mother-in-law was the complete opposite from the start, constantly pushing us to get married because in her mind being over 25 and not married was some big shame she had to explain to her friends. So once we finally did get married, she immediately started hounding us about having a baby, even though we made it clear it was not the right time for us, and despite explaining it over and over again, she never let up for 5 straight years. And while my father-in-law once told my husband just to keep his head down because his wife ran the show at their house, and even though part of me respects a woman being in charge, living with her pressure has been a nightmare, because she cares more about showing off to her circle of old friends, women in their 60s who spend their time bragging about their kids and grandkids, than she cares about what we actually want for ourselves. And my husband did tell her more than once to stop bringing it up, but it went in one ear and out the other, and when he talked to his dad about it, the old man basically told him to suck it up if he did not want a bigger mess. So we stayed quiet longer than we should have just to avoid starting fights, but over time it wore us down, and 2 weeks ago I finally snapped at her during a dinner at our place, because while I was busy working in the kitchen she kept going on and on about some tea that supposedly helps with getting pregnant, and I told her straight up that if she was so desperate for a baby she should have had another one herself instead of breathing down my neck, and for once, she shut up, and honestly, I did not even feel bad about it, especially after what happened today, because for a little while after that blow-up, she stopped bringing up babies every time we met, and she even cut down how often she showed up uninvited at our house, which was a huge relief because she normally had zero respect for our space, and whenever she did visit after that, she barely even looked at me and spent most of her time clinging to her son. And while part of me was worried we might have pushed her too far and that it could hurt our chances of getting an inheritance down the line, since they have serious money and a very nice house, we figured it was smarter in the long run to stay on her good side, even if it meant putting up with her behavior a little longer, because both my husband and I agreed that it would make our lives a whole lot easier someday, and besides, the house we lived in had been a wedding gift from them, so we ended up living way too close for comfort, and even though we hated it, we figured we could hold on until my husband got promoted at work and we could finally afford to move farther away. And that promotion finally came about 3 days ago after years of busting his back at the bank, and thanks to it, he not only got his own office but also a massive raise, and between that and my income as a realtor, we were finally looking at a real shot at a richer life, and I am not trying to brag but it felt good knowing we had earned every bit of it, especially since my husband had put in endless late nights and I had managed the house while juggling my own career, and the best part of all of it was the thought that we could finally get out from under his mother's thumb and live the way we wanted. So even though we knew it was a little early, we decided to host one more dinner at our place to tell them the news and celebrate a bit, and since I work in real estate I already had a few houses in mind for us, and tonight they came over but my mother-in-law showed up looking miserable and barely said a word to me all night, which honestly did not bother me because the less conversation the better, and dinner was mostly my father-in-law doing the talking while she sulked in silence, and when it was time for us to tell them our big news, my mother-in-law stood up first and said she had an announcement, so we figured we would let her go first and save our happy news for after, and boy am I glad we waited, because she dropped a bombshell and said that she had officially taken my husband out of her will and was planning to make sure his father did the same unless we produced a grandchild within a year, and she made it clear she did not care if we had the baby naturally, adopted, or went through surrogacy. She just wanted a grandkid any way she could get one, and said we were an embarrassment and a disgrace and that unless we gave her a reason to brag like all her friends, we would not see a penny of their estate because she would rather give it all to charity. And the whole thing was so crazy that we barely knew what to say, and even my father-in-law looked like he had been hit by a truck, so it was obvious he had not been warned ahead of time, and while part of me thinks this all started because I finally talked back to her a few weeks ago, I never imagined she would take it this far and actually cut her own son out of the will. Funny thing is, her threat did not even land the way she probably thought it would, because a few months ago, yeah, it might have rattled us, but now, with my husband finally making real money, we were standing on our own 2 feet and did not need to rely on her or her will anymore, so I decided to tell her straight up, just minutes after she finished calling us an embarrassment, what this dinner was actually about, and when I let her know her son had been promoted to a big position at the bank and was no longer just another employee, I saw the way her face fell, because she had spent so much time putting him down about not being successful enough, but now here he was, young and already managing other people, and it was a huge win for him, and yet here she was, ruining it. So I made it clear to her that I was not going to sit there and let her throw dirt on our good day, and if she really felt we were such a shame to her, she could go ahead and leave our house. And she looked completely caught off guard, probably realizing at that moment she could not unsay what she had just said, and even worse for her, if we moved away and cut her out, she would not even have the bragging rights about her successful son anymore, and that would hit her way harder than us not giving her a grandkid, and she must have figured that out quick because she started scrambling, slapping on a fake smile, pretending to congratulate my husband, saying she always knew he would make it, and suddenly acting like grandkids could wait. But it was too late because by then my husband had pulled himself together, and when she tried to hug him, he backed away and finally let her have it. And it was not just about the last 5 years of marriage where she drove me crazy, it was about a whole lifetime of her controlling and criticizing him, and I do not think I will ever forget the way he broke down into tears right there, because he is not the emotional type at all, and seeing him like that was brutal. So I stayed calm and told his parents it was time for them to go, and my mother-in-law tried to stay back to keep talking, but I made it clear that it was not the time and she needed to leave before things got worse, and my father-in-law tried tossing out an apology as they left, but honestly it was useless. He had all the time in the world to stand up for his son and never did, always just let his wife bulldoze everything, and once they were finally gone, it took me over an hour just to calm my husband down because he was a wreck, and honestly it hurt to see him like that, knowing that even though he always kept a brave face about it, his relationship with his parents was barely holding together, and now it was just plain broken, and there was nothing we could do to fix it because it was not on us to fix, it was on them, and they had missed their chance a long time ago when they kept choosing pride and control over just being good parents. So now, even though my husband is finally successful and happy, they have no right to be part of it, and it hit me just how much pressure my mother-in-law had always put on him, always making him feel like he was not good enough, while his father just stood by and did nothing. Which is why when she called about half an hour ago asking to talk to her son, I answered and made it clear that after everything she said, she lost the right to just call him whenever she felt like it, and from now on she would have to go through me first, because I was not going to let her hurt him again, and she did not like that one bit, immediately getting nasty on the phone, so I hung up the second she raised her voice because my husband was finally sleeping and I was not about to let her disturb him again, and after that she sent me a bunch of texts blaming me for everything, saying I was the reason she was losing her son, accusing me of caring only about money because I supposedly forced her son to care more about his promotion than about starting a family, and saying I ruined him by turning him into someone materialistic, and even though I know I should not let it get to me, it has been eating at me a little because maybe in some way she is right, maybe I do care about security and money, but it is not like we ever stayed close to them just for the inheritance, because truth is, we have not needed or asked them for a dime, not now and not before, and if anything we stayed out of a sense of duty, trying to keep a connection even when it was not easy, so it feels really unfair for her to dump all the blame on me now, and I know it is too late to call any of my friends to talk this through, and even if I could, they would probably side with me no matter what, but what really scares me is the thought that maybe I did mess this up, and I hate that thought, because I never wanted to be the person who comes between someone and their family, and I do not want my husband cutting ties with his parents just because of me, and that is why I shed back so hard earlier when my mother-in-law said those things about us being an embarrassment, because I knew she crossed a line that we could not pretend away anymore. Update 1, I am back, and before I get into it, I just want to say thanks to everyone who messaged and commented, it really meant a lot. So it has been almost 2 days since the dinner blow up and we are still not speaking with my in-laws, not because they have not tried, they definitely have, but my husband shut it down hard. Because he is done with them for good now, and the next morning after the dinner we sat down and talked everything through, and I showed him the nasty text message his mother had sent me where she tried to paint me as the bad guy who had twisted him into caring about money more than family, and my husband immediately reassured me that none of it was my fault. He even admitted that he had stuck around all these years only because of the inheritance and nothing else, and that if it had not been for that carrot dangling over his head he would have moved far away and cut ties long ago, because his parents had never once been emotionally supportive, and at the very least he figured they owed him something for all the years he had put up with them. And he said he did not care if he sounded materialistic because after everything he went through as a kid and even as an adult, he had earned the right to make his own peace however he needed to, and now he finally had the job, the salary, the life he wanted, and we did not need their money or their help anymore, and besides, it was not like we even had a choice now since his mother had already taken him out of the will, so that bridge was already burned, and we both agreed that cutting them off was the right move. And even though his mother kept calling and even showed up at our place last night, we did not open the door, And even if deep down I might have wanted to patch things up at some point, my husband made it clear that he was finished with the pressure and guilt trips and just wanted to enjoy his success for once, and honestly, after everything they put him through, he deserved to, but his mother has been blowing up my phone nonstop, blaming me, begging me to convince him to talk to her, still trying to twist it around like I am the one ruining everything, but the truth is if she had been a better mother or a decent mother-in-law, none of this would have happened, and now she is just facing the consequences of her own choices, and my husband is absolutely right to walk away from it. Update 2, we have finally picked out our new house and we are getting ready to start moving in the next few days, and today my husband told his father straight up that he was moving and there was no changing his mind, and his father, who has never really stood up for him, got upset but not enough to actually do anything about it, just like always, and my husband told him that after a lifetime of waiting for him to be a real father and defend him from his mother and never seeing it happen, he had no right to complain now, and while his father was obviously sad about it, it was nothing compared to how his mother reacted. Because when she found out, she lost it completely. She came over to our house again yesterday, and this time my husband decided to let her in and have one final talk, and I stayed in the bedroom because I did not want any part of that train wreck, but from what he told me afterward, it did not go well, because when he told her that he was cutting ties and why, she tried to gaslight him, saying she was only trying to push him to be better, but he called her out and said it was never about him, it was always about how she looked to other people, and when she realized she could not talk him out of it, she completely lost it, started crying and begging him to stay, said she could not handle him living on his own, and when he stood firm and told her he was a grown man who made his own choices, she went absolutely crazy, screaming and throwing cushions around the living room, and it got so loud I had to come out and see what was going on, and by then she was yelling incoherently while my husband was trying to call someone, probably his father, and when I tried to calm her down she just turned her anger on me, accusing me again of stealing her son and poisoning his mind. But before things could get any uglier my father-in-law finally showed up and dragged her out, even though she fought him the whole way, and watching her meltdown was honestly both scary and sad, but more than anything I was just relieved she was gone and that we would not be seeing her again, and my husband said later that letting her in had been a mistake because clearly she did not see him as an adult even now, and after everything she screamed at us, I cannot imagine anyone thinking differently. Update 3, and I have some really great news to share, because it turns out the reason I have been extra emotional these past few days is because I am pregnant, and I found out after taking a test a few days ago, and I am honestly so happy it is crazy. It feels like everything is finally falling into place, first my husband's promotion and now this, and the timing could not be more perfect, so my husband and I are over the moon about it, but we have decided not to tell his parents and we have blocked them completely, and my husband even told his father that if his mother tries to come near us again after the stunt she pulled, he will not hesitate to call the police, and he made it very clear he wants nothing to do with them anymore, and while his father was not thrilled, he agreed to back off, and honestly, it is for the best, because the way my mother-in-law acted, she does not deserve to be part of our lives, let alone our baby's life, and I am actually relieved everything came out before the baby arrived, because I would never want her crazy energy anywhere near my child, and moving day is getting closer, and we are making sure they will not know where we are going because the last thing we need is her showing up and causing more drama, and right now all we want is to start fresh, focus on our future, and be happy, and I cannot wait to be a mother.